On with the show.
Welcome back to another episode of the Voices of Misery podcast. Of course, you know me, I'm the nerd, man, but I'm very excited. I told you guys I had a guest coming on this show. I didn't want to reveal the name because sometimes, I say things out loud and I jinx myself. And I was really excited for this guest here today. I binged a couple of the movies that this person was in, and unbelievable. This man is very accomplished. He's a writer, he's an actor, he's a composer, editor, singer, and songwriter. He's got more titles than anybody I've ever had on the show before. He starred in Bittersweet and Major Payne, just to name a couple of his films. Name is Steve Martini, new friend of the show. Welcome. Thanks for coming on the Voices of Misery, sir. How are you?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. Thanks for having me on.
Hey, thanks for coming on, man. And when I saw your name, I'm like, let me look this man up. I was reading through your itinerary and just things that you've done, and I'm like, wow, Major Payne, one of my favorite movies growing up. And then I saw Bittersweet, and I was looking for it, and I was like, oh, it's on Tubi. And my first thought, I don't know if you ever went on Tubi and saw the quality of the movies that are on there. I was like, oh, it's a Tubi movie. And I put it on, and within 5 minutes, I was like, this is great. This is a good movie. I was immediately into it. I fell into the characters, and I can't give this movie any justice as far as describing it. So I'm going to let you describe the movie, what it's about to the people out there listening, and just kind of in your own words, what's this movie about, and just the whole process behind it.
Bittersweet is a film that I wrote and I directed and I starred in. My wife plays the romantic lead in it, as you know. She plays my character's baby mama, and she also produced the film. And so it was a real kind of family affair as my roots in the independent film arena started with making films with my brother and my family. I've continued that tradition and expanded my family to include, my now wife, and my kids were even involved in this film. And Bittersweet it's a real personal story because something like this kind of happened to us. It was kind of based off of as you see in the beginning of the film, it is based on a true story. And because of that, I immediately, as my story sense kicks in as a screenwriter, and I immediately saw, oh, this is a movie I've never seen before, and I was opened up into a world of people and families who have been in the situation like my character in Bittersweet, where they're basically pulled out of their homes and forced to not be allowed to come home or see their significant other or their kids for sometimes for valid reasons, but in this case it was a mistake. And I when I entered into the whole court system meeting people who went through this thing, there was just a whole array of different stories, different families who were inside the legal system for reasons they didn't really want to be. And, again, as a screenwriter and a filmmaker, I just immediately said, oh, this is a world I definitely can make this and see this. And I started seeing it as, oh, a TV show. You have social workers knocking on people's doors, basically deciding their fates, whether or not they can live in their own homes or not. And I kept saying, wow, that's just utterly compelling to me. And so yeah, so when the cops kind of take you out of your house and force you to kind of figure out how you're going to get back, I immediately saw a very sort of modern day Odyssey, a story about a guy who's just trying to get home. And like I said, it's based on a true story that, as you see in the film, it's clearly a mistake. The guy's an innocent guy going through something.
Yeah.
Um, and so, I tend to have a sense of humor with things and find the levity of things, and this film has that kind of heart and humor. But as I said, as I was going through this myself, it was very clear that there are people in these kind of situations with the law that are, it's not quite so lighthearted or innocent, and that's why the system is in place, is to protect people. So I just kept seeing that dichotomy and seeing how dark and really kind of tragic the whole thing could be. And I kept seeing that, and I kept meeting other people going through that, and then comparing that to my own situation, which was, sort of ridiculous and absurd. Again, as a screenwriter and a filmmaker, that kind of contrast just compels me to say, okay, this is something that I want to do. And I started seeing the how it could be done, basically rolling out of my bed and shooting a movie in my house.
The movie itself is incredible. And like you said, it does highlight a bigger problem in our society. I mean, we got a broken judicial system. It's set up to keep the kid away from the father, no matter how big or small the problem is. And it's like a one size fits all solution. You know, a man and a woman separate. The woman takes the child immediately, no questions asked, and the father has to prove that he can be a good father. And that's kind of what I really drew from this movie was like, you know, you're this guy down in his luck. The movie starts off, the guy's like passed out in his car, you know, and it's like, what the hell's going to happen next? The guy can't even pay his Wi-Fi bill. You know, he goes home and his wife get a little freaky, things get a little crazy. The cops show up and it's like, what the hell? This guy can't catch a break. And it was something that was so innocent. And you see him go through complete hell. And all he wants to do is see his kid take his first steps. And you see the crap that, you know, you go through in this. And for people that are seeing this movie or have seen it already, it is exactly that ridiculous. You know, I've seen people that I grew up with, or you know, my brother's friend. He had a bad situation with a woman, and he was a great guy, and he hasn't seen his kid in like years, and it's over some bullshit. And I just wanted to ask you, like, have you gotten any feedback from some of the people that you talked to in preparation, doing research for the film, as your portrayal of a guy who was in this situation? Did they portray it as that? Did they say it was accurate, or did you get any kind of feedback or kudos about it?
Yeah, well, again, and that was the actual reason that I said I need to tell this story because I was meeting real people going through this thing, and I knew as a storyteller, nobody's telling these stories. It seems to be, for whatever reason, it's hard to get those stories out there, and the response has been very heartwarming and genuinely like exactly the reason I made the movie is people are contacting me and telling me that that this is really helping them get through their own situations, and they want to show it to their kids, especially because it deals with being on the spectrum and being neurodivergent, which is an aspect of my character in the film,
Yep.
that he's neurodivergent. So for him to even function and deal with this stuff is part of the drama and the storytelling. So people but both of those elements, people are really feeling, I've been getting a great response, and feeling like, okay, that's why I made the movie, so that people can relate.
Fantastic movie, and I can tell you've got a lot of talent because you can clearly tell that this movie was made like you made it in your own house. You get your wife, your kids were in there, so you obviously didn't pour a ton of money. Like this isn't $100 million blockbuster film, but it's legit. The way you filmed it, the way it flows, everything flows like it was a film that was released in the theaters. Where did you get your chops from? How did you learn the craft of making a good movie?
Oh, that's a great question. Um, I started off as an actor. And my first film was Major Payne. I played Cadet Alex Stone in a 1990 classic. 1995 was it now? Yeah, it's almost
Yeah.
31 years ago. And it's become a cult classic comedy over the years. Generations and generations of people have kind of been watching that movie. And back in the 90s when it came out, it didn't make $100 million at the box office. It just kind of came and went. It opened up a few doors for me as an actor. I was able to get on some good casting calls, and I moved out to Los Angeles. And at some point, when you're an actor, you're really at the mercy of everybody else. You're an interpretive artist, so you're kind of waiting for other people to give you something to interpret and kind of bring life to. And so I was in a situation where I was getting cast on some cool things, and at some point, I got my own TV series. And I don't know if you remember NBC in the 90s, they had something called Must See TV. It was on Thursday nights, and it was like the big prime time TV,
Oh yeah.
kind of everybody was tuned in. And so I had a show that was going to air after ER, which was like a big medical show, right? And that's a
Mhm.
big time slot in the 90s. And our show was basically ER, but we were undercover cops. We were all like, kind of semi good looking, undercover police officers in New York City, and it was an
Like 21
ensemble
Jump Street
cast.
almost.
Yeah, yeah, it was called Prince Street, and I played the rookie, kind of the Noah Wiley character, and it was a really, it was a great experience as an actor. But at some point, again, it took like a few years to make it, and then they were firing actors, recasting actors, and then all this hype that we were going to air on these Thursday nights, it all kind of got the rug pulled under it because again, what I was finding out as you get behind the scenes, the corporations that own these studios, they have their own kind of legal gamesmanship that they're playing with each other, and they use content, or back then it was actual creative arts and stuff. They use that as their poker cards, and they kind of negotiate stuff. And so anyway, our show was used as a sort of a poker card between it was Warner Brothers, the studio, and NBC as a network. And back then, it was like these laws that, again, this is in the weeds, but like a studio and a network, they both wanted to own 100% of the show, and they were fighting over like percentages, and they were fighting over actually syndication rights. Back then, in the old millennium, there was something called syndication when a TV show when it stopped airing its primary time slot, it would get bought again to be played a million times over, and that's where most of us grew up watching old TV shows on syndication.
Yeah.
And anyway, there was a lot of money to be made in syndication, and they were fighting for the rights of syndication for like Friends and I think Seinfeld. It was like a whole thing. And because they weren't agreeing on those shows, they used our show as like leverage. And they said, okay, well, we're just going to take you off a Thursday night and move you to Friday night, then Saturday night. And next thing you know, this season of a show that we shot is it gets canceled after 3 episodes. So I'm sitting there and I have all this money as an actor. You get paid really well to do a season of a TV show. But I was feeling very like frustrated and sad and like totally powerless. Like, oh my God, my whole fate has now been decided by this system I didn't even understand or have anything to do with. But I had some money. And so, I kind of went to first principles on that and said, okay, well, I know how to act and I know how to read a script. I'm going to write my own script and make my own movie. And so I got together with my brother, who who at the time was very interested in making films also. And we ended up writing a script and making our own movie. And it was called Smiling Fish and Goat on Fire. It's an independent film. In 1999, it went to the Toronto Film Festival, and it won a bunch of awards there. And 1999 was a big year for films. I don't know if you know, it was like Magnolia, Office Space, The Matrix, The Phantom Menace. Like it was like one of the greatest years of film. And so to be up there in Toronto and winning an award that about something that I wrote and starred in, it was a real magical time and a magical place. And it opened up this door to say, oh, now I'm a screenwriter. And then Hollywood was seemed to be way more interested at the time for me as a screenwriter because you can make a lot more money sort of in development. There's so many things as an actor when you're like I said, you're interpreting, right? So you're waiting on the river, you're waiting for something to float by. You're downstream of all this stuff that you need to survive. But as a writer, you're upstream, and they spent a lot more money upstream developing things. So basically what happened with me is I started writing and, I'm working on TV shows and pilots and rewrites, and you can make good money like that. And you learn a whole skill set of how to actually put these things together. Is that
Now,
a long-winded answer?
oh, no, that's a great answer, and a lot of my audience is going to really love this because we've had actors on before. And one thing I did want to say here was because when I was watching Major Payne, it was the first time I watched it in years. The very first person that pops up on the screen, one of the first actors and actresses, was Karen Parsons, who was the very first guest we ever had on this show. So I was like, holy shit, it's Karen Parsons. I had her on here before, and now it's kind of coming full circle here. But I want to ask
Man,
you.
man, Karen, I love Karen. She was really she when again back then in the late 90s when I first moved to Los Angeles, I didn't
Yeah,
know anybody. And Karen Parsons was very, she helped me get a manager. She had a manager, and so she kind of opened up, she gave me a good word at least, which in this business kind of could go a long way. And so she opened up a door for me to get a manager, and that was really that was really helpful. So she was awesome.
Real sweetheart. And she was like I was saying, she was the very first celebrity we ever had on the show. So I was extremely nervous. So this was your first real big break. This was your big break on Major Payne. So you show up to set, you see Karen Parsons, you see the Wayans brothers, you got all these stars there. How was your reaction being this young actor walking into this building, 1995, the movie came out, so what, like 94, you were probably filming it. You should show up in 1994 or whatever, and you see these stars. Is there a bit of imposter syndrome? Like, who am I? Why am I here? Do I belong here? Any of that?
It's very interesting that you asked that because there was something bigger going. I really felt this glow. It's like a glow, as I can only say. It just felt all right. Everything was aligned. Like I belong here. This is, meant to be here. It really felt like that at the time. So, you know, yeah, I mean, I guess just, technically with the craft and the work as an actor, yeah, I guess I was a little nervous because you just kind of want to be able to deliver your part and stuff. Like I remember even my audition, I had to audition for Damon Wayans, right, in the room. And like I was nervous as hell. And I thought that, honestly, like I had you get these weird out of body experiences, where you kind of leave your body. And like I could feel myself judging my performance in the audition. Like it kind of sucked, because I can't do anything funny in front of the funniest man in the world right now. Like there's no way I'm gonna be funny.
Yeah.
So like that was a little bit nerve-wracking, but again, like I could feel myself judging the performance, but there was a wisdom on top of that that said it doesn't matter. This is gonna be yours no matter what. So I kind of felt that, that thing that they call destiny or fate.
Okay. Now, you played Alex Stone. We didn't really talk about the character as much because, man, let me tell you, your character was such an asshole in this movie at the start off. He was such a jerk, It was like, oh my goodness, this guy's just giving. He's like the main antagonist of the movie. For people that haven't seen this, I don't know who hasn't. I think everyone in America's seen this movie. One of the classics. I wanted to ask you though, because like you're a nice guy. I've watched a couple of your interviews. I've seen you in other films, and you've always come across as a great guy, like you are now. Where do you channel the "I got to be a jerk"? Like, is there someone in your life that you're like, oh, this guy at the supermarket that I bumped into, that's Alex Stone.
Well, if I have to be a jerk, I just channel my brother. No, uh, that's a good question because people have said that to me over the years that I hated your character, and again, you don't really judge your characters, at all. You just kind of play where they're coming from, and
Hmm.
this is a kid who was, he had some trouble. He was being abused by his stepdad. And, I played him where he had been left back for a year because I was already 18 when I got the part. And while we were shooting, it was June, I turned 19. So like I was turning 19 while we were shooting, and I kind of played him as he'd been left back, and
Yeah.
he wasn't so happy with where he was. Yeah, but I don't think in terms of, oh, I just got to be a dick, like everybody has it in them to be a dick, be a jerk. It's just a matter of, is that what's driving this scene right now? And will that make this scene the most entertaining and compelling thing?
Yeah. Okay. It was a great part. I mean, it reminded me of the character Johnny from the Karate Kid, where it's like this jerk, and it's like, man, I just want to slap that guy. That's the kind of role you were playing. It was really good. I enjoyed the hell out of it.
Well,
But yeah,
that's funny you mentioned the Karate Kid because after watching Cobra Kai and Johnny's comeback, again, I guess we're leading into this quickly, but I wrote Major Stone, which is where Alex Stone is today, 30 years later. And Cobra Kai
what?
was a huge inspiration of how can I bring back the world of the Green Boys? And yeah,
That
so
that is awesome.
I'm so excited about that. That's the thing I'm like, this thing I'm pushing forward next.
Yeah, you got that. You have another project too. I was going to throw it out at the end, but I saw you have something in actually, now I believe Salute is that another one that's coming out?
Which one? What is it called?
Salute.
Who?
Salute. I saw it. I was on your page, and you know what? The internet never lies, obviously. But I was on the Wikipedia page, and I was just looking at a couple of things, and it said you have something called Salute, which is in post production. Maybe you're
Oh,
such a good
so
actor. Was it?
Salud was a, yeah, that's already, I think that already came out and went. It was a, I think it was a short film, but I played a crazy guy in it. Yeah. So yeah, that one was a short film.
Oh, okay. So they must not have updated the page then. My mistake. But
Yeah.
let me ask you this because you let's go back to 1995. You just finished the movie, everything wrapped. You know, you got your first paycheck there from your first big role. What's the first thing you do? You're 19 years old. You've got this check. You know, you had a very big role in a movie. You know, in a movie, you're 19 years old. I'm sure you're getting a lot of attention. What's the first thing you do when you get that?
Well, first of all, we not only got checks, but we were shooting in Virginia on location, which means that you have to get something called per diem. According to union rules, they have to give you cash every week in an envelope. So if you're living on location for a whole summer like we were, they gave us like 660 bucks a week cash on top of just our actual salary.
Oh wow.
So I took that 660 bucks in cash. I put them all in envelopes, and I knew at the time my rent in New York City was 600 bucks. So I saved up for like the next year or something of my rent with that money. And then the rest of the money I got in checks and stuff, I just, I used it to live as sort of frugally as I could until I can get the next job.
Now, one thing that I will say is, you know, a lot of people that get into acting, they either get into it for the money or they get into it for the passion. You can say, I can ask you which one you got into it for, but it seems to me like you got into it for the passion because I was doing some research. It looks like your brother, when you and him got together and started making a movie, your very first script, you guys financed what, tens of thousands of your own money to finance it. Was that an easy decision for you? Because when you're putting your passion out there, when you're putting something that you are writing and creating and putting it out there that it can either sink or swim. You got to have a lot of faith in the product that you're putting out there. Was it an easy decision for you to say, we're going to do this, or was there any hesitation, or how did that go?
No, well, like I said, I had all of this, can I curse on this podcast? I
Oh, oh,
mean,
please do.
my TV series got canceled, but I had a lot of fuck you money,
Mhm.
like I had money. So I was like, what do I want to do with this money? I don't want to buy a house. I don't have a family. I want to make a movie. So it wasn't a hard decision. It was just, we didn't really know what we were getting into. The harder part is after the fact, you make it with a bunch of passion and gusto. And then you don't realize how hard it is to get anybody to see these things. But back then it was the late 90s, 99, as I said, and the film festival circuit was still very rich and thriving. So for us, that ended up really working out, like hitting a grand slam home run. But definitely 100%, I can tell you, I got into this for passion. It's still my passion. And it hurts sometimes because I wonder, I'm like, wow, maybe I should have gone after things for money in my life, because as you get older, you realize, well, shit, everybody else seems to just care about money, and money does help you survive. But, and being in this business and seeing how much of a business it really is, especially behind the scenes, it definitely makes you kind of gives you a little bit of cognitive dissonance, because when you care so much about the work and the passion, but then you meet everybody else who only cares about the numbers and quantity over quality, there's a bit of a there's a bit of a gap there that I still struggle with.
Now, these ideas that come to you and you write the stories and you go out there and you make a film, I'm sure you probably have ideas running through your head all day long. How do you know which one is the one that you're going to run with? Out of all the ideas that you probably have going through your head, how do you know which one's going to be a hit and which one to put your money behind?
There is a very specific thing that happens to me, and it's something that I would say they call it's ineffable. That's like you can't really describe it in words.
Mhm.
Um, but it's like, a bell rings inside of me. And even that's not even it. I'm using metaphors, right? But something happens where I go, oh no. And then, oh yes. And then like lightning, basically you get struck by lightning and this whole thing will just kind of crystallize as, again, it's kind of an image, kind of a sound, kind of a word. It's just a whole, it's usually a character and and a situation, it's something kind of a relationship, something that, two things that are just like, creating so much energy between each other. And if I sit with that for a while, it'll start to almost like, if I stay with it, it'll start to kind of rain down on me. I'd say raining, it's like it kind of starts to rain down and and something will click at some point because again, I've been doing this for, again, like 30 years now. And, especially when I started screenwriting and, and I play music also. So all of that's part of the same thing as a songwriter, as a musician. It's like it comes to you and then it's your job to kind of filter it through your voice. And once I start filtering it through my unique kind of voice and point of view, I'll get like it's like a I don't know what the word is. It's like a feedback loop. It's like a feedback, like aha, yes, this is it. And if it's something that I know I can pull off and do, I'm like, I got a movie in me. I got to go let this movie get out. It's like I got it in me. Now it's got to come out. And if it's something like bittersweet, I knew right away, when I said, "Oh my God, the bittersweet is about a dad who just wants to see his son walk for the first time, but he's not allowed home." I knew right away that was something that was in my wheelhouse, and I can make that. I could, with my powers and abilities of creativity, I can control the situation enough, where I can make something that I know will be entertaining and be quality as far as my concern is. So it's again, this is a long way of answering. It's just like it's a thing that happens. And I can tell you the last time it happened to me, it was in my wife was dragging me to the dentist's office, right? And I did not want to go to the fucking dentist. Who wants to go to the fucking dentist, right? And I was miserable in the car on the way there. I thought I had stuff to do. I didn't care about my teeth. And I get to the dentist's office, I sit down in the chair, and this hygienist walks in, and she was just full of light and energy. And she started talking to me. She loved her job being a hygienist, And I was like, this is amazing. And she was describing the whole thing to me about teeth and everything. And like lightning, the whole like a new idea just came to me about this me sitting in this chair, talking to this hygienist. And I wrote a whole script based on that. And so yeah, that's kind of how it happens. And I just once you know it's in you, like a fire lights up, like a fuse, and you just kind of have to, keep blowing on the fuse until the thing blows up.
Some people have it and some people don't, my friend. I certainly do not have that, but you certainly do because I was a big fan of Bittersweet. And I saw one scene in particular. I'm watching it. I had to stop the movie and I had to write this down on my notepad because I laughed so hard during this one scene. It was just something so stupid and subtle. It was the scene where you were getting arrested and you're shirtless and the cops are bringing you in and they throw you behind the cell and the one guy's doing a pat down on you. And as he's doing the pat down, he stops and he tweaks your nipple and then continues to pat down. And no one acknowledges it in the movie. And it's just a really subtle thing. And it just made me burst out laughing because certain things like that in the background that are kind of like maybe like the guy trying to get you to laugh as you're filming. I don't know if that was something that was just thrown in like ad lib or whatnot. But things like that make me laugh. And it looks like you guys had a good time filming it. So I wanted to ask you about like ribs on the set. Are there any like good stories or ribs or tricks you guys play at each other to make each other laugh or try to break each other during scenes?
Oh yeah, well, I mean that specific scene, those guys. So like, I knew I had a cop scene. I had to shoot it the next day, and again, when you're in the middle of the heat of production, it's the most inspiring time to like rewrite everything because you're like, well, we're gonna shoot tomorrow. Now I can make the scene better. So originally there were only two cops in that scene when they pull up to my house, and I kept seeing the frame in my head. I said, "Oh God, wouldn't it be so much better if another cop car pulls up and it just gets more escalated?" And so like I literally went to my cafe where I wrote this script in a cafe, and I went to the baristas who were there, and I knew they were actors, and I said, "Hey, you guys want to play cops?" He's like, "Yeah, that would be awesome." He's like, "I got the perfect guy who can play my partner." I'm like, "Great, just show up tomorrow." And they showed up and they were ready to roll. And I knew these guys were like improv artists, so they could just make stuff up. And yeah, it was just injecting that energy into the scene. So anytime I was like, since I was directing the film, I couldn't really fully like I had to just be present as an actor and like So like I just told them, guys, just do whatever. Try and make me crack. Try and make me just like get upset. Just go all out 110%.
That scene, I don't know what else. It just got me. It's made me cry. I mean, think about it now, made me laugh. The guy just stops and he goes, "Dude, it just keeps going." Your wife plays Gigi in the film, and
Yep.
and in the film she's from. You mentioned from South America. I'm assuming Brazil.
Yep.
Okay, so
It,
let me ask you this. So you're married to a Brazilian woman. Have you adopted any of the Brazilian culture, or she adopted more of the American culture when you guys got together?
that's a good question. You know, a little bit of both. I think she's probably, again, she moved to America. She wanted to live in America, so like she's very much into being here. Uh, it definitely rubs off on me, but she's probably more American than I am Brazilian.
Awesome. Yeah, she was really good in that movie too. You guys have obviously have great chemistry. I saw, and then this is just going through the research. Is there going to be part two to this?
I wrote a sequel. I wrote a sequel to it, but again, as I was um basically I'm waiting for, you opened up talking about Tubi. I'm waiting to see the numbers from Tubi to see if like, oh, okay, is this something that I can, that's worth me putting my energy into to make another film? So I wrote a sequel actually of these characters, to see what their marriage is like 10 years later. Um and but like I said, I'm waiting for those Tubi numbers, which by the way, Tubi gets a lot of shit, but like and I know, yeah, Tubi movies, you get lucky if you get a good one. But honestly, I think they're holding the whole business together lately because they just have everything on there. And I'm really happy with the things that I see on there. And honestly, even the ad-based system, I found myself going, it's refreshing to watch these ads sometimes. I don't know why. Like they put their ad breaks kind of in the perfect spots in my film. And I was like, oh, that's cool. They put them in nice little spots. So ad-based businesses is how the whole entertainment, industry has always worked. And so it's interesting for me to come back to kind of liking that now because I used to always hate commercials growing up. And so now I think it's interesting, that they have that there. But yeah, so I'm waiting for their numbers to kind of see what they're going to say. And like I said, it seems like every time I talk about Major Stone and bringing Alex Stone back, I have for a while I built up a following on TikTok, and my fans there are like, they love it. And there's so many Major Payne fans. So it's like, it seems to me that there's an audience there that really wants that, and I got a great fucking story about where my character is today. So I pivoted to say, okay, I'm going to focus on Major Stone and let Bittersweet have its own little, life here on the streaming services. And if people want to see that sequel, I got the script. But yeah, as I said, I'm kind of waiting for the numbers.
I don't see why that wouldn't be a hit. Honestly, I mean, it's a cult classic. A lot of people watch this movie. I mean, on Prime, where I was watching Major Payne, that one got 4.5 stars. So I mean, and what's it called? Tubi gave that 3 stars, I believe, or something like that on like the user rating. So it's got a lot of interest. People like the film. There is interest out there. See Cobra Kai. You saw what they did when they brought these older characters back and kind of gave them life again. And it's got wheels. There is an audience.
There is, and I gotta say, I got a awesome way to bring back these characters, and like it opens up the whole door of like, bringing back all, the Wayans family or an entertainment royalty, really. And so, you know, in my storyline, you find out that Payne had a family, and it opens up the door where, oh, if you guys want to keep going with this, we're going to bring back, we can bring back everybody, but the first story is specifically about Alex Stone returning home and reuniting with some of the Green Boys and, what goes wrong.
See what everyone's up to now. I mean, the thing is, like, you watch a movie, and oftentimes at the end, I'm like, hey, what happened to that character? There is life to some of these films the way that they end, and for sure, I could definitely see that being a huge thing for you. That's kind of
Well, again, as a storyteller, like, again, because I've had these years of training, like once I figured out, oh my God, Alex Stone is, retiring from the military and coming home. Like there's so many stories you can tell. And what I'm dealing with now is Alex Stone and Major Payne is a copyright IP issue. So like I'm contacting Universal Studios basically to see how I can like license the characters and stuff because or else I would have to kind of just change the names and change some of the details. But like I said, I know I got a great story about a soldier who's retiring and coming home, and if I can't get it Alex Stone, maybe it'll be Major Jones or something. Yeah, I'd have to just kind of like pivot a little bit, but like I still have a great story about, a character reuniting with his old buddies.
There is a story to be told there for sure. Now, you've written quite a few roles. You've been in a lot of things now. If there was one role that you can put yourself in, it could be any role in existence. You could be Bill Murray's role in Ghostbusters. You could be Indiana Jones. Just remove the actor and put yourself in there. Is there one movie, role, or franchise that you're like, hey, I could have done that role just as well or better, or the dream role that you would have wished to have been a part of?
Oh God, over the years it becomes there's so many. I mean, that's the hardest thing about being an actor, is you just don't if you don't get the opportunities other people have and you're like, wow, I could have done that. I didn't get in the room for that. Like, there's so many. My God,
None that
what
stand out, like not there's like one particular thing, like, damn, that's the one right there.
um I never really got to audition for any of the Star Wars stuff. That was kind of disappointing. I always wanted to audition for that stuff because that's what got me into any of this, was George Lucas's independent filmmaking genius. And I never really got to audition for anything Star Wars, which was disappointing, but I did get to write on a TV show which inspired George Lucas to make Star Wars because he couldn't get the rights to Flash Gordon, right? I don't know if you know that history, but he was trying to make
Absolutely.
Flash Gordon.
Yeah.
But so I did end up writing on a TV show that was the Flash Gordon IP. They made a TV series out of it. That's a whole other story. But at least I got to get close and go, oh, this is what inspired George Lucas. Now we can tell our own stories in this universe. And at the end of the day, again, I wasn't in control and I didn't have any of the financing ability to tell people where to put the budgets. So that was another learning experience in TV when you just kind of have to get along the best you can. But it was still great to be a part of something that like was, oh man, this is what started it all.
Now you are a very creative man. You've done a lot of things. You did mention that you have Martini. Wanted to ask you about your musical inspirations and just like what got you into the musical side.
Music has always been part of my life and my process. You know, I think when I was an actor auditioning for things a lot, I think there was a time when, again, like I just felt like I wasn't saying my own words and I wasn't like really doing my own thing. So, at some point I picked up a guitar. My grandfather died and left me his guitar. And I picked up his guitar and I started playing the guitar and like I played the piano as a kid, so like I figured out, how you can kind of, they're not similar, but if you know music, you can figure it out. And I just started music. It felt like a natural expression of my, again, my voice, my creativity. And you can say so much in a 3-minute song. And you can technically write a 3-minute song can come out in 15 minutes, or it could take days or weeks, but still the process is way more compressed. And you can get all this emotion and excitement and drama out in a song, and it's basically a monologue with music and poetry. And so like that just always I love that stuff. Like I think in those terms. I think in music and I've always been writing songs and writing music is very similar to me. There's writing screenplays, like structurally and how things connect and stuff. Um, yeah, I guess it came down from my grandparents. They were both musicians and they both kind of wanted to be in Hollywood and be in entertainment, but they never made their way there. And so I guess I kind of lived out their dreams.
Man, that's beautiful. You picked up the guitar and you just carried the mantle and just brought it to greater heights, you know. Look at you now. You're an entertainer, you're doing everything. It's awesome.
Well, it's interesting because how do you really judge success? Like I think, oh, my grandpa, he was supposed he played like one show with his music, and then they couldn't go anywhere else because he freaked out. He kind of got stage fright and stuff, and he didn't really write any songs. And my other grandpa made some records that I never heard because they're gone. And so like, I don't know. I guess I'm still out here just trying to be prolific, making stuff. Like if something makes, most people think of success if it's popular or makes money. But I've always been somebody who said, well, I don't like that go big or go home attitude. Like, because then you might as well just do nothing if it's not going to be like something huge every time. So for me, it's like every new thing is a beautiful thing that you get to make.
Exactly. And I can tell you're very passionate about the music. You're very passionate about the acting. So I'm going to have you choose one here. If you had your choice to be the world's greatest actor, most successful actor, you get all the A-list roles, or would you rather have a career in music where you're revered like the Beatles, you know? But you can only choose one. You can't cross over.
Oh, Jesus, son of a bitch.
It's a tough one.
Yeah, that is a tough one, because again, it's almost like I know too much about both of those industries now. Now that I'm on the other side,
Yeah,
I see how both of those industries are run and what it takes to kind of get to that level of whatever you think is, the height of success. Um, again, yeah, I don't know. Look, music is fun, but I guess, yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. I guess I'll always be an actor to a certain extent, Like I think the acting thing would be it would be nice, like if it would be great to be on a show for a long time, like the X-Files. Like again, like if you, like I remember in the 90s I wished I was Fox Mulder. I'm like, God, I wish I could be on that show. It'd be great to be on a long-term show like that. That's just like cool. And I guess I'm leaning towards actor to this question right now, just because honestly the music business is so disgusting that I'm just like, I don't think I would have what it and I love music. To me is still so precious when I make something that like I almost would not want that to be taken away, and with acting, you can do your thing and leave and then show up for another thing. And so I guess I'm going with acting. There you go. You just helped me decide that. Thank you, sir.
that is a fantastic answer, man. I only have a couple more questions, and I do have to give a shout out to my best friend Jen. She did watch the movie with me the other day and was helping me come up with a few questions. She had a few of her own, and she did have one comment as well. If you will allow me to embarrass my friend here,
Please.
she wanted me to say, when you interview Steve, tell him he has beautiful eyes. I said, I will tell him. So there we go.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. That's why we should have did this on video, I guess, huh? That was
Oh no, because
Thank
then
you.
I would have got lost in him. Hmm.
Yeah, well, I guess I got to thank my dad for that. I inherited. My dad has blue eyes, my mom has green eyes, so it's both of them really. It's a nice little mix.
And she had a couple questions here. She wanted to know, how does Hollywood compare today from when you first got into the business? Has it gotten worse? Has it gotten better?
Oh my God, it's gotten a million times worse. It's worse. It's way worse. It's just it's I mean the whole environment has changed now to the point where, a lot of people don't know which way is up. Um, it's just yeah, it's just you would think it got easier somehow with technology, but it just didn't. So I think back then there was a sense of again, it was the 90s, right? The whole time period was different. It wasn't, I mean, even we were cynical and jaded about things, but in a different way, you know? It was a different kind of cynicism. I almost feel like in a weird way, it's kind of funny because we grew up, like people who sold out and went commercial and, like we had grunge. Remember how like Kurt Cobain was the most popular musician and he was miserable, and Fiona Apple was like, this is all bullshit.
Mhm.
So it's like we grew up in the 90s where everybody was like, okay, this is not really the end all be all, but it didn't have this layer of cynicism and kind of nihilism that we have now, And I don't know if that's because of the tech companies that are taking over the studios and it just seems like a lot of the people who really truly loved movies the way I do, again with the passion that you seem to be picking up on, it seems like a lot of those people are not the people in positions to actually make decisions where they used to be. They used to be in those positions and they used to really care. And I really think now it's so much more about a bottom line and, like we said, quantity over quality.
Yeah, like you're in the business, I'm not. So I speak from a place of just like, hey, I'm just a viewer. Don't speak at me. Just give me some art, give me something to watch and enjoy. I don't need a lesson every time. I don't need social issues thrown into this. I don't need politics ruining movies. I just want a fucking movie that I can enjoy from beginning to end without agendas, without this side or that side's influence heavily in the movie. I don't need to
Right.
see
So, so,
all
so,
that
so
shit.
that's exactly what, like, again, like I want to thread the needle, with Bittersweet. Like you watch Bittersweet and like I knew again when, so 2016, 17, 18, 19 was like when I started to experience these things and it was like hell during those periods, right? Like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Like the world was like so different and like you didn't know where you stood. And I just knew that like I'm gonna tell this story, but I'm not gonna make it where it's left versus right. It's not gonna be about men versus women. It's not gonna be about like he said, she said. I hate all that shit. So it's like you watch Bittersweet and you're being told a story and there are clearly, issues in there that we can all see, that are, man versus woman. The system is clearly making the man the bad guy. And I knew that was the crux of my story. But again, I just don't want to hit people over the head with that stuff. And even with the neurodivergence and autism, like it's not a movie about a guy who's like discovering his autistic superpowers against all odds. And like there's a time and a place for those movies where they kind of bang you, hit you straight over the head with these like messages about issues and things. And that's just not my way. Like I want it to be part of the tapestry of a story and just tell a story. And if people are gonna like project what they want on it, that's up to them. But for me, it's riding that line where you're just telling a story. You're just spinning a yarn and being as entertaining and meaningful as you can be.
I thought the movie was fantastic in a lot of ways, and that's one way as well. And another way is like you don't really see men in movies that overcome and are the sympathetic characters. It's usually the woman in the position of the one that you want to feel bad for, the one down and out, the one that has to get better and overcome. And in the end, it's like you feel good for them. You don't really see guys as the sympathetic characters as much. Maybe I don't watch enough movies, but this movie did buck a lot of trends that made me enjoy it even more. You know what I mean? Like there weren't all those tropes that you see in a lot of movies now. It was very well done.
I appreciate you saying that because like again, like I said, when I started writing this and thinking about making this, that it was not popular at all to make the guy the victim or make the guy the, straight white guy the center of this kind of situation. I was actually like, again, and I hate the fact that I'm even affected by this stuff, but it
I
really
know
all made me nervous, like, oh my God, maybe I shouldn't be doing this. Maybe I should make the main character different. And like you just have to shut out all of those voices and just like focus on like what you know is right.
that's the key. But you're talking about the human element. Like you can write as a human being. And I wanted to segue into like one last topic here. And I got one more question from my friend Jennifer, but this is one I really wanted to throw at you here and take as long as you need to answer this question. AI is something that I feel is the end all be all. I think that is the end of civilization when it finally gets into high gear and it's taken over our banks and everything. But since you're an actor, I've wanted to take it more in a creative perspective. You see AI writing scripts, creating movies online. Like I saw something the other day of like Joe Rogan fighting fucking Keanu Reeves in his fucking John Wick gear, and it looked real. And it's like, wait a second, why do we need actors anymore? Why do we need writers anymore? And it's just what's going to happen to the industry as a writer, as an actor. Do you
Oh God.
fear the future? How it's affecting the industry?
Yeah, dude, this is a big, big, big topic. You know, a couple of years ago, both unions, the WGA and SAG, which is the Writers Guild and the Actors Guild, went on strike. And I was on strike with them for this very issue because AI was rearing its, ugly head. And I've done a lot of studying since then, and I've looked into it. I obviously, like, I have these things, like I don't. My search engines now are basically AI, right? Like, who am I kidding? I don't even, it's all over the internet. As as far as like actors are concerned, look, that's not even acting. It's not. And like if somebody actually made one of me, then they sent it to me like a fan. They made an AI thing of me, and it was the most soulless experience I've ever had in my life. Like, and I've edited footage of myself acting, so I've seen myself from different angles. Like I know, like I've had the whole experience, and it was not acting. I would not consider it acting. I don't know what it is. It's an avatar that's just like a bot, like it did not give me any of that sense that I get when I'm watching, my own performance in something. So it wasn't even me, right? So it's like that to me is a obviously they're going to be licensing famous actors like Val Kilmer just kind of I think his family just agreed for him to come out in a movie. And so like the families of those people are going to be making money continually off of those big stars and like I can't really begrudge that. I get that, right? That's something they're selling the image, but yeah, man, I get a lot of cognitive dissonance with this stuff because like as a filmmaker and as a writer, you know, it's very, very like as a screenwriter, I can tell you this, when I moved behind the scenes to start writing screenplays, there's so much abuse that happens to the writer, and there's so much power that gets completely removed and taken away, especially with filmmaking, because it's really a collaborative process. And so, like, you can spend years of your life, like writing 120 pages, and like this thing is you put everything into it, and then it just goes and it keeps sitting on somebody's shelf, and you're waiting, and then it takes another 10 years for people to keep saying no, and it's like I understand that plight very, very well to put your time and energy into something and then have nowhere to go, be completely out of your hands. And so, like, in that sense, when the Writers Guild was on strike, I understood. I was like, wait, this is actually AI is irresistible to screenwriters. Because if you can write a screenplay and then upload a PDF into an AI machine and do whatever work it takes to make a movie. Like, who the fuck am I to say that a screenwriter can't do that? Like I'm not going to try and tell people what tools they can use or not use. Again, as an artist, I don't want to control people's like tools. I'm not going to tell them what to do, as kind of disgusted as it makes me feel. So it's like I'm always battling those two sides with this issue. I've seen some of the AI stuff. I mean, some of it is so mind-blowing. You're like, okay, this is, there's Star Wars stuff. I've always wanted to see, what happened when Han Solo and Chewbacca and Princess Leia went in to go have dinner with Darth Vader in The Empire Strikes Back. They had dinner in Cloud City, right?
Yep.
Han Solo whips out his laser gun, shoots Darth Vader, blocks the blaster bolt, and then they sit down and have dinner, and the scene cuts. But I've always wanted to see that scene. What happens when they're sitting around the table eating dinner? And now with AI, you can make that scene. And I saw that scene on YouTube and it was incredible. I was like, holy shit, this is something I've always wanted to see. Um, so like I get that. I understand the draw and the power that it will have. And there's lots of filmmakers that are using it. So, I'm just trying to stay informed about it. I'm trying to stay aware of it. And and I think we have to fight back as much as we can for human rights. We just need, and that's what I learned on strike. Is like we knew this shit was coming, but the Writers Guild just said, no, we're gonna keep fighting. We have to like lay our flag down and say humans come first. The WGA says that AI cannot be forced upon a writer. A writer can, if he wants, if they choose to, if she wants to explore it, they can use AI to do whatever the fuck they want at the writer's discretion. But it can't be top down forced upon you. And so to me, I think that's how I came up into this issue going, okay, that makes sense to me. You know, Again, I don't know what that means it scares me to think I'm only focused on one issue, which is my wheelhouse, but like all of the other issues going on with AI, all of the other jobs that are going to be misplaced, that just rattles my cage. I mean, I get scared. I worry about the truck drivers. I know that they're using AI to scan their fucking eyeballs right now to see where their fucking eyeballs move when they're fucking driving so that these fucking machines can drive for them. And that scares me, you know? Like I don't know what to people have to come first and we have to be able to fight for that without any sense of, shame or like even our own ignorance. We're all ignorant and naive about these things, right? And the people who are shoving it down our throats are fucking salesmen who are lying. I know salesmen, the PR industry, Hollywood gave me a big, a big education on what public relations is. And the PR industry and marketing, it sells everything. I mean, our entire history is all of that, you know. So like we just have to be very wary at what these people are trying to shove down our throats and sell us, because yeah, I'm worried about what happens on the other end in that sense. But if I look again at the big picture of history, you don't want to be one of these doomers who are like the sewing machine is going to kill all the the knitting people. It's like this thing always happens where technology comes in, and and I think the reality is I identify as a creative artist in this world today, as a screenwriter, as an actor, as a filmmaker. My identity is part and parcel tied into technology. So like I'm not 100 years ago, they definitely thought that cinema and movies and silent films and a frame rate of 24 frames a second was going to brainwash people and make them stupid and go insane. That the old train robbery movie where the train looks like it's going to drive off the screen and the audiences ran out of the theaters like that's where we are right now. So like we know how that turned out. So like again, it's like so much of this stuff is is your glass half empty? Is it half full? Are you able to put an optimist's goggles on and say, I'm going to have faith that we're going to pull out, the best, that this tool is going to like require the best of us to use it at our best. And so like I have to force myself to stay positive and optimistic because or else it's, because I do think that, you can wallow in depression and negativity and it's just not true. Like there's just as much negative hyperbole as there is the positive hyperbole. So you gotta find the middle.
Can I scare the shit out of you real quick?
Does
This
that
is
make
my.
sense? Too long?
Oh no, you perfect sense. But I do want to scare you really quick.
Scare me. Do it.
So listen to this, man. Like you know how shit always escalates. It always gets worse. They tell you, all right, take this, and then before you know it, it's take that, and then before you know it, you're fucked. And my thing with AI is, all right, fine, we're going to start using it. We're going to integrate it. It's just a tool for now. But I can see a world where we're creating full movies in AI, but I don't think New Line Cinema is going to sit there and say, okay, the new Nightmare on Elm Street 15 is going to come out in AI. I think there's going to become a point where this becomes available to the public like it is now. Like I can go online right now and make a 5 minute video making people do whatever I want. What happens when AI gets so advanced that everyone has it in their own home and you can create your own movies? You don't have to go to the movies. You don't even have to turn on your TV. Whatever you think, whatever you want, you can type it into your computer. I want to see Spider-Man beat the shit out of the Incredible Hulk and then fight Superman. And then boom, 5 minutes later, the movie's uploaded and you're watching an original film. You can change the ending. You can do whatever you want. You're in control of all the stuff that you watch. I can almost see creativity in studios shutting down once that becomes available to the public. Because who the hell is going to want to watch a show that they might be disappointed in or get a Sopranos ending when they can have the ending they want, when they can create whatever content for whatever actors they want. That's where I see it going. But then again, I overthink about the worst scenarios because usually when you think about things that the government and the things that big tech is forcing upon us, it's usually pretty bad. That's just how I
I,
see it.
I hear you. I hear you. And I thought of that very same scenario, and I don't disagree with you at all. I'm like, yeah, dude, I see that coming too. And I do not know what to make of that. Yeah, there's, again, I don't know. Again, if we look at the past, though, like how often do you, when you're on your TV, like you scroll through things, like there's nothing to watch. There's nothing, like you go to a hotel and I'm doom scrolling through cable TV, like I'm driving my car and I'm like doom scrolling through the radio, going, what's on? So it's like
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm trying to get at? I feel like we might be in the same place then, where it's like the people who really want to do it are going to do it. Maybe more people will be able to have easy access to push a button and say, "Oh, look, Luke Skywalker gets to, you know, fight Darth Maul now because they're in the same line." And like, you know, yeah, I don't know. That worries me too. But I think that the people who really want to do it are still going to really want to do it. And like I said, like look, you and I are talking, and I just talking about my passion for the craft and the arts, and you're saying, yeah, I don't have that. I don't know, you have that. That's great. So I still think there's people who are like, yeah, I don't, they don't want to mess with things. They don't have this com to feel compelled, this artistic drive inside to like make something out of their own pain or whatever. I still think there's going to be people who do that, and there's people who won't do that. But yeah, as far as like the bigger scale of the business aspect of it all, that's all fucked. Like how to make money on any of this stuff is just going to be insane. I don't know.
Well, we got to revisit this in about 5 years or so, because I think we got a 5 year time limit before things get really out of control with AI. I mean, there was a video of Will Smith eating spaghetti like 10 years ago that looked like shit. They redid it with today's technology, and it looks like it's really him. It's just insane. What are we going to look at in 5 to 10 years from now? AI and how advanced is this going to be?
Right, but even if like let's say like if I wanted to make Major Stone and bring back everybody, like you need to get the rights to these things, or else it would just like, I don't even know if the streamers would air it, or, what somebody would sue them. It takes the judicial system and the system of copyrights and laws. And look, I know justice moves slow and all that stuff. And who knows if it'll even work anymore. Things are moving so fast, but like, yeah, I don't know. I just don't, it baffles me too, but I'm trying to keep an open mind to say, I understand enough about the process to know how hard it is. Even though they say, oh, AI is just going to take out all the middlemen and you can just make a movie. I've seen what it takes to make an AI movie. It's fucking tedious work. It's like even the joke in the beginning, I was like, oh, this is slop. You just pushed a button. It's a microwave oven. You're not doing shit. You're not cooking food. Like, yeah, I still agree with all that. But when you really look into the work that it takes, it's tedious work. It's somebody sitting in front of a computer, like not getting what they want. And the AI doesn't always give you what you want. You have to keep it constantly in check. It's like riding a fucking Bronco. You're on a rodeo and you got to keep this thing going. And if you don't have a strong vision for what you're trying to aim it towards, I don't see it taking anybody anywhere. So it's really going to take, again, it's going to take the right people to be working with this stuff.
Exactly. Now, last question I got here for you, my friend. You've been in quite a few products. You've had things written about your life, loosely based stories off of your life, and things like that. So I can tell that your writing and the films that you're in are very personal to you. Do you have one thing in particular that you've written or starred in that you would encourage everyone to look at, watch, because that is your pride and joy? That's your firstborn, that's your baby, that is your number one. What would it be?
Well, written or I mean something that's been made already?
No, something that you've done or even have coming up. Is there like a piece of art that you've created that is just something that is from the heart, your favorite thing that you really want everyone to check out?
Well, Bittersweet. Bittersweet is on Tubi right now in Prime Video. So that's my baby. And as far as like that's where I'm at right now. I made it with my family. It's very it's a unique film. It's not something that a lot of people would, I think have the voice to make. You know, uh I'm really excited about, right now. I just finished Major Stone and I'm like, dude, I need to make Alex Stone's comeback. That's like I got the greatest story for that. And I'm like, I'm super excited for that. I've written some scripts also that like haven't been made that I'm like in love with, but like again, it takes so much time and energy. I wrote a script actually. My favorite script that I wrote was called, it's about the Wright brothers, the creation of the airplane, the flying machine. And that script is like every time I read it, it feels like I just got $1 million injected into my veins. It's so inspiring. And it's a film that's never been made before. Nobody's made a movie about the greatest Americans of the 20th century who created something that was impossible and we all use every day. It's the airplane. And they were two nobodies from nowhere, bicycle mechanics. And there's so little information about them in the public sphere that when you start to do research, it's the most fascinating story that's never been told. So I guess I'll end on the Wright brothers because that's a script that I'm about to start going out with now.
You know which one I was thinking you were going to say? I would have bet my $1,000 would have been Limelife.
Oh yeah. Well, you know what? I forgot about that.
You forgot
Limelife,
about
Limelife.
that.
So we didn't even talk about that. So Limelife was the second script that I wrote after Smiling Fish and Goat on Fire. And again, my brother and I, after we made that film, we won a bunch of awards. We, became screenwriters. We said, "No, let's write something that's deep, that's based on our childhood. Our families getting divorced was a big issue growing up, and my girlfriend had Lyme disease. Her dad had Lyme disease, and that was a big, one of those things that just shakes your world. And so we ended up writing this script about our childhood, on Long Island in the 80s. Um, and we went to the Sundance Labs with that. The Sundance Labs, this circles back to our original question, which was how do you become an independent kind of filmmaker? And Sundance Labs is like a Sundance Institute. People know them for the festival, but what they're really there for is to develop like new, unique voices and projects. And so Robert Redford started this thing called a filmmaking lab, and they read thousands of scripts per year, and they accepted our script to get in there, and Lime Life became a film because of that. But again, our first film, we said, okay, let's just go make a movie. And I had $50,000 from my TV money, my fuck you money, and we just made a movie. We ended up winning awards, and within 6 to 8 months, we're like running the festival circuit. But then our second script, Lime Life, gets into the Sundance Labs, and it took 8 years to get made because the budget was bigger. We had bigger actors. Again, the story was probably deeper and richer. Um, but Lime Life stars Alec Baldwin, Tim Hutton,
Emma Roberts.
Emma Roberts, and Rory Culkin and Kieran Culkin. And the Culkins are kids that I grew up with, actually. We went to the same high school together in New York City. And so we grew up together. And so Kieran and Rory were able to play brothers who they were basically stepping in for me and my brother who were, writing about our childhood. So if people are interested in watching some Academy Award winning actors deliver some martini lines, Lime Life is definitely a special story in my heart.
That was my personal favorite work that you've done. I thought that was amazing. I'm a big Cynthia Nixon fan. I used to watch Sex and the City back in the day, so I saw that. I was like, wow, she's in this too. He's got a hell of a cast for that one. So I was shocked they didn't say that one. It was my personal favorite. You know,
Yeah, it was a really, again, when you're telling a story that's so personal and it lives in you for years and years, and then it takes that long to get the movie made. By the time it came out in 2009, it was such a bizarre, like the whole world had changed. The whole Hollywood had changed. It was just right before streaming, and like Netflix was kind of like losing its DVDs. And so like Lime Life didn't really have its streaming moment. It didn't really quite hit a wave of streaming because it was right before all that. So I've always been curious to see if people are going to rediscover Lime Life the way they had Major Payne.
awesome. Hey, Steve, this has been an absolute pleasure. I appreciate you coming on the Voices of Misery podcast. We always end these episodes here by just asking you if there's anything you want to plug, promote, put out there where people find you. Anything you want, the floor is yours, sir.
Plug, yeah, Bittersweet is on the Prime Video and um, Tubi right now and a bunch of other streaming services. It just came out in Brazil, so if you have any Brazilian listeners in Brazil, Bittersweet is now streaming down there. It just came out this week. Um, Yeah, you could find me on all the socials. I'm on the TikTok is I used to have a bunch of followers on TikTok, but then they banned me. I have no idea why. While I was promoting Bittersweet, they totally banned me. So now I've had to start over on TikTok. But there's a nice Major Pain community there. Yeah, I'm on Twitter, I'm on Instagram and all that stuff. Um, Yeah, this is just getting the next thing going.
Everything will be in the description of the podcast as well. You guys can click the links, follow everything Steve Martini. It's been a pleasure, sir. Thank you for coming on the Voices of Misery podcast. You got to come back when you have something else to promote. So we're glad to have you back. You're a great guest.
Thank you.
Oh,